Hello, bankers. A very good evening to all of you. Welcome back. So, welcome to Jaiib Savvy Prep. So, guys, in this particular session, we are going to start with our Module B, Unit First or Unit 12, right? So, we have already done with the basics, introduction and PYQ of Module B. I hope you have watched that particular one. Okay? Basic introduction to economics. Then we have microeconomics versus macroeconomics, fundamental questions, what to produce, how to produce, whom to produce. Then we have type of economies, market economy, command economy and mixed economy. So these are the major subtopics which are generally part of this particular unit. So first we will be building our concept, basic concepts, which is required to solve questions from this particular unit. Then we will be practicing Macmillan question as well as a set of PYQs as well as expected question from this particular unit, right? So module B is all about concepts. You have to have work around these particular concepts. Then only you will be able to solve the answers. And very interesting one also, and this will also help in some other examination if you go for regulatory bodies and others. So where also we have the concept parts, and this kind of practice and concept, they are definitely going to help you in those particular one, right? So we will start with economics. So when it comes to the economics portion, okay, so economics, which generally it is all about like how people they generally use scarce resources. Like let's say if you are earning something, so how you utilize that particular money in a maximum, so you can fulfill your maximum need and wants, right? So that particular calculation is all about the economics. So we do follow economics on daily basis in our life. Like we have family, so we have family income, how we are using those resources so we can have maximum satisfaction from the available resources and all. When it comes to the resources, we always have limited resources, right? So how you are using that scarce resources to maximize your needs and wants, that is that calculation or that management is all about your economics, right? So economics is the study of how people seek to satisfy their needs and wants. Needs are basically the basic requirements for the human beings, right? Like food, shelter and others. Want is like apart from that, like if it comes to the Maslow's hierarchy of need. So we have आपका physiological needs which are required to like basic like food, shelters and others. Then other needs like your safety, your social or love and belongings, esteem, self-actualization, they generally comes under wants. So want, which is generally known as end in economics, okay, so which does not have any end. So we do have, like as we upgrade in life, so our wants they get increased day by day, right? So like right now, let's say you if you want to buy one car, so that car, purchasing that particular car is your want. You want to buy one another house, that is your want. You want, like after having that particular car, you want to upgrade that car to something else. Then you want to buy something like some luxury cars or some luxury items. So these all are your wants. The need is basic requirements which we require to live, and wants is to fulfill our desire in others, right? So by making choices or how people look to fit up, how look people look to fill their unlimited wants within limited resources. This is all about the economics. So need means like air, food, shelter, things necessary for the survival. Want, something desired but not necessary for the survival. So the overall management of this particular one is generally known as your economics team. How you manage these particular things, or how you generally going to manage or use those scarce resources to maximize your benefit and all. So that is generally comes under your economics itself. So when we go fundamentally or the overall aspect of economics, the meaning or the other things, so that is given in this one. Now sometimes this type of statements are important. Like let's say if they ask you which of the following statement is correct about the economics things and all, so you can find one statement from this particular one also, right? So very simple one. Economics deal with the production, consumption and distribution of goods and services focusing on efficient resource allocation to meet societal needs. As globalization increase, the study of economics become more crucial. The economy, when it comes to the fundamental meaning, it originates from the Greek word that is known as oikonomia. So meanings household management. Okay, so it is this term economy is taken from the Greek word which is oikonomia. Oikyo. So we have two oikos, one and nomia. Nomia is basically management and oiko means your home. So home and nemia which is management. So economics is defined as the science of human behaviors in relation to scarce resources and their alternative uses. Scarcity arises when resources are insufficient to fulfill all human wants, leading to the need for decision making and trade-off. Trade-off is something where you have multiple alternates and you go for the best one as per your uses, as per your utility and others. That is your trade-offs, right? So we do some sort of bargaining. So that is like, let's say if you have 10,000 and you want to purchase a new mobile phone, you do have alternatives. In 10,000 you can get different mobile phones. So then you do the comparison between these alternatives and you go for the best one. That is your decision making, right? So the core of economics lies in recognizing scarcity and finding way to optimize resource utilization, making it essential for societal organization and progress. Sorry. So this is the basic introduction of economics, and you all know about this one, and you do not have to remember or do any sort of ratification around this particular. Just build your basic understanding. That is more than enough. Okay. Now the important part will start from this particular one. This get asked so many times, so you have to remember these particular one. What you have to remember, like we have when it comes to the definitions of economics in your curriculum, they have given only three. So that means Adams, which is related to wealth. So Adams definition is related to wealth. Sometimes they'll ask you to match the following. So you have to be very careful around this. When it comes to Marshall definition, it is related to welfare. And when it comes to Robbins definition, it is about the scarcity. Okay? So when it comes to Adam Smith, he is generally known as father of modern management. He come up with a book that is called Wealth of Nations, 1776, right? So economics is the study of wealth, focusing on how it is produced and consumed. So how people they generally generate wealth and how they generally consume. So that entire study that is generally part of your economics as per Adam Smith. So it got criticized for being too materialistic and as it emphasizes wealth over the human welfares, right? So this is Wealth of Nation, that book in 1776 or 77. Adam Smith, he generally come up with this particular one. So it is all about how individual or nations or organization they generate wealth and how they consume that particular one. So the prime focus of this particular or Adams aspect was around the wealth only. So they generally ignore the human welfares and all. Then we come up with Marshall who generally come up with the definition of welfare. So how government is generating wealth or individual is generally generating wealth and how they are consuming that particular one or investing that particular one for the human welfares, right? So economics is the study of men in the ordinary business of life, how an individual make decision in their day-to-day basis, how they use their scarce resources. Wealth is a mean to human welfare and well-being. So it is like how you are using that wealth for the human welfare and well-beings. That is your economics, right? So it emphasizes both wealth and human life, making it more balanced view of the economics. Then finally we came to Robbins who generally give some sort of focus around the resources. So we do have scarce resources. So how we are using those scarce resources to maximize the benefit of human beings, or how we are using that overall the allocations, how people they generally make choices out of their scarce resources. That is, or that study is generally comes under your Robbins definition, right? So economics is the science of human behaviors, focusing on relationship between unlimited wants and scarce resources. So people, they do have unlimited resource wants and desires, and how you are going to make decision or choices of to fulfill those particular desires, how you are giving the priorities to those particular desire and wants out of your scarce resources. So with alternative uses, shift focus from the wealth and welfare to decision making and resource allocation. So that is the one. So many times you'll see the questions, they'll ask you to match these particular one. So we are also going to practice some set of questions based on the PYQs also in this particular session. Now, first, so this is all about a basic introduction to economics. The most important part was those three definitions. Now, the another part, most of the time you'll see one question around this particular one, which is the differences between microeconomics and macroeconomics. When it comes to microeconomics, it has a limited scope, which generally study how individual and firms, they make their decision out of scarce resources. That is micro. So let's say if it comes to the micro economics, so how individual make their decision, that demand and supply or pricing and others, that generally comes under your microeconomics. When it comes to macroeconomics, it include broader aspect. It study economy as a whole, like how the inflation rate is going on in the economy, what is the employment and unemployment status in the economy, the stage of economic growth, the depression, the recession. So it study world economy or the economy as a whole. Take like monetary policy, fiscal policy, GDP, inflation, unemployment, poverty. So these are the topics which are generally part of your macroeconomics, right? So macroeconomics, macro means big. So it is study. The study areas are country or government or international entities like NATO, European economies and all, or as a word. So the topic study are like GDP, national economy, unemployment, employments, inflation, global economy. When it comes to microeconomics, microeconomics, it should be micro, again, not macro. Again. So just a minute, I'll correct this particular one. It is micro. Again. So when it comes to microeconomy, it is study individual, how individual make decision, how families make decision, how businesses make decision about their product or their pricing and other things, right? So this is all about micro versus macro, right? So let's have a look one now. Like before coming to this particular one, just go through this particular one, right? So microeconomics focus on how household and firms make decision to allocate limited resources in market where goods and services are being bought and sold. Okay? So let's say as an individual, while you are making decision ki which phone should I buy for that particular purpose, whatever desire you have, okay? Or which house we should purchase, which car we should purchase, or the any other things. So that is something. Or the businesses, like what should be their pricing, or what should be the areas, or that what to produce, how to produce, whom to produce, where we have a limited scopes and all. Okay? So it studies these decision affect supply, demand, prices, which in turn influence the further economic choices. Microeconomics analyze behavior of individual consumer and businesses to understand the decision making itself, right? When it comes to macroeconomics, it deal with the overall performance and structure of the economy, of an economy. It studies aggregated indicators like GDP, unemployment rate, inflation, interest rate, and others. The modern form of macroeconomics is emerged in 1936 when John Maynard Keynes, or generally known as Keynes, he generally come up with a theory, general theory of employment, interest, and money. So please do remember this one again. So Keynes theory, which is generally known as general theory of employment, interest, and money, who generally got published in 1936, address economic fluctuations such as unemployment and inflation as well. Okay? So when it comes to the micro level, it is all about individual and organization, how they are using their scarce resources. When it comes to economy, macroeconomy. So macroeconomics is something which deal with the broader, which generally consider national economy as a whole, as a single entity, or world economy as a single entity. So how governments, they are making decision, how they are allocating resources, so they can have maximum utilization of resources or maximum outcome from those particular scarce resources. Right now, this comparison will help you out. So basis of comparison, first meaning. I hope now meaning is clear to everyone. Microeconomics, macroeconomics. The branch of economics that study the behavior of an individual, consumer, firm, family, also known as microeconomics. Branch of economics that study the whole economy, both national and international. Deal with individual economic variables like demand, supply, and others. And this deal with aggregate economy variables like inflation, interest rate, GDP, and others. Business application apply to operational and internal uses, environment and external issues like political issues or world economic issues and all. Scope cover various issues like demand and supply, product pricing, factor pricing, production, consumption, economic welfares and all. When it comes to macroeconomics, cover various issues like national income, general price level, distribution, employment, and money supply. Next one we have importance. So helpful in determining the prices of a product along with the prices of factors of production like labor, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurs, and others. So here we have major problems of the economy like inflation, deflation, reflation, unemployment, poverty as a whole. So limitations, when it comes to the limitation, it is based on unrealistic assumptions. In microeconomics, it is assumed that there is a full employment in the society, which is not all possible. But here it is analyze and falsity of the compositions involved, which sometimes does not provide true because it is possible that what is true for aggregate may not be true for individual. What does it mean? So let's say when it comes to the GDP growth, GDP wise, India is world fourth or fifth largest economy. So while it comes to the overall, like you are world fifth largest or fourth largest economy, but we are not that developed, right? So the education level or the living standard is very poor. So one way you are having, like you are world topmost economy, but another way when it comes to the development agendas and others, you are at 130th or 129 number. So that is the difference. So this is something which is generally categorized under this particular one. I hope this is clear. So microeconomy. So the question is mostly around the subjects under micro versus macroeconomics. Understood? Next one, guys. Now the another important part. This year also there was a question around this. So fundamental question of economics. Okay? So we have three fundamental questions which applies to all type of economies. First one is what to produce. So what to produce. Another one is how to produce. And third one is whom to produce. Okay? So what, how, and whom. These are the three fundamental questions which generally economies face. That means like whenever, let's say if it is a socialistic economy, which is also known as command economy. So in case of socialistic economic structure, these decisions are generally made by the government of the country. In case of command economy, these decisions or these questions are solved by the market economy or the demand and supply factors. In case of mixed economy, public and private jointly make or solve these, try to solve these particular questions. Okay? So fundamental questions, this is something which is very, very important one. You have to be very careful around this one. Okay? Very simple one, right? So first, so every society, regardless of its economic system, must address three fundamental economic problems. First one is what to produce. So when it comes to what to produce, societies must decide which goods and services to produce and in what quantities. Choices must be made between producing consumer goods and investment goods to ensure future productions. The another one is how to produce. Decision must be made about the production methods, including uses of resources and technology or the economic structure also. Key question include whether production is labor intensive or automated, and where the energy is sourced from oil, coal or renewable energy. So these kind of questions we generally solve in this particular one. Whom to produce? The customer. The concern, income distribution, and who benefit from economic activity. Societies must determine if wealth is distributed equitably, who earn high incomes, and whether provisions are made for the poorer or not. So that is something. So economies, basically these questions are like whenever governments of that particular economy or any economy, they come up with some sort how they are going to use those resources. So that resources, while they decide, they face these three core questions: what we should produce, how we should produce this particular one, and for whom we are going to produce this particular one. So after answering these particular question only, they will be able to deliver things, right? So this is even for an enterprise also. If you are running some business, so what you are going to produce, what problems you are going to solve, how you are going to solve, or how you are going to produce that particular one, and your customer segment, their income capabilities. You are going to produce that particular good for affiliate section, or a low income group, or any other part, or it is a kind of a universal things, right? So this is something which we generally face while we generally plan to use our scarce resources and all, right? So something which is very, very important. So please do remember. So two things as of now. One is definitions. Another one is microeconomy and macroeconomy. And third one was core economic questions. Now the fourth one, the final part of this particular one, which is different type of economy. So we have majorly three type of economy. One is command economy, which is also known as socialistic economy. So where all the decision about the economy are taken by the governments, right? Like you can take an example of China or North Korea and the previous USSR. So these were the examples of command economy, where mostly things or the ownership that generally belongs to the government of that particular country. Then the opposite of this particular one is market economy, which is also known as capitalistic economy, where decisions are generally made by the market factors. When it comes to market factors, it means demand and supply. Okay? So basically, as like you have free entry exit. Okay? In case of command in economy, you do not have that choices. But in market economy, you do have that options. If you want to enter in market, you start something open to world. So you can start. If you want to exit, you can exit. You can close that business. Okay? So basically, decisions are generally made on the basis of the current demand and supply in the market, right? Then third, like if you ask me the examples, like US economy, UK economy. So they are purely based on the or primarily based on the market economic structure. Okay? So which is also known as capitalistic. The third type is after this or the post Second World War 1944 announced, the one new economy emerged that is known as mixed economy. They have positive side of command economy as well as positive side of your market economy, like India. So we have, in case of mixed economies, we have a participation from government. Government usually monitor or regulate things, and we have features of market economy also, where generally things get decided on the basis of market demand and supply, right? So that is the one. Traditional economies were something like, this is the ancient economies, where like people, they used to limit it to some area. So where we used to have that barter system and barter system. Again, we do not have any sort of trade and globalization during that particular period. So this is about the ancient one. But majorly we have these three. So traditional economy, when it comes to traditional, economic decisions are based on custom, tradition and belief. Little to no specialization of labor. Barter system is common. Again, exchange of barter in barter system, exchange of goods to goods, or exchange of goods and services based on gold or silver coins and other mediums. Okay. Resources are allocated based on the need of the community. Limited economic growth and innovations. Okay. But at present, we do have these three types. Command economy, sorry, first market economy, which is also known as capitalistic economy. Economic decisions are made by individual and businesses. Specialization of labor is common. Prices are determined by demand and supply, which is also called market market factors. Private property rights are protected. ठीक है? So you can own properties, houses or cars or anything else. ठीक है? So this is the one. ठीक है? Competition encourages innovation and efficiency. Limited government intervention. Basically, government they generally oversee kind of in this case, right? Then command economy. When it comes to command economy, the property rights belongs to or the ownership right belongs to the government. Okay? Government will decide in this case that what to produce, how to produce, whom to produce. The decision will be mostly by the private parties or the market. But here the decision or the answer of these particular question will be given by the government of that particular country, right? So economic decisions are made by the government. Little to no private property rights. Central planning determine the production and distribution. Little to no competition. Limited, they have some sort of monopolies and that monopoly belongs to governments. Limited consumer choice. Limited innovation and economic growth, right? The final one or the modern phase, which is macro mixed economy. Economic decisions are made by both government and individual and businesses. Private property rights are protected. Again, as Indians, you can own the houses, right? So government regulates certain industries like atomic energy, railways, or many more, right? And provide public goods and services like healthcare, transportation, educations. Market forces determine prices and allocate allocation of resources. Some level of government intervention to address the market failures and promote social welfare also there, right? So like activities like CSR and others, and even so many other areas. So this is something which is very important one. So you have to very careful around these particular things. Please do remember this one and go through. You do not have to do any sort of rectification. Just build your concept. With practice, you will be able to answer or memorize all these one, right? So first one is market economy, capitalistic. Economic decisions are made by individual and private firms through the market. Price, profit, and incentives determine production and consumption. Minimal government interventions. So majorly we have laissez-faire. When it comes to laissez-faire or free reign, it is where the market economy is at its extreme. So that is the situation is known as your laissez-faire. Allow businesses to operate freely. Okay? Command economy, the government control production and distribution. It own most resources and industries, employ workers and direct economic activity. Historically, Soviet unions operated under this particular system. Okay? Mixed economy. Nowadays, most of economies are mixed economy. So most modern economies blend elements of both market and command economy. Government regulate market, like we have market regulators and all, provide public goods and services, and control pollution while allowing market mechanism to function. Market mechanism means decided by demand inspectors or the private and public parties. India and most of nations today operate as a mixed economy, right? Understood? One more slide. Okay. So you can get everything clear with different definitions. Okay. So traditional economy, oldest economic system. Occupation usually stay in the family, like farmer, fishermen, and others. Families consume the foods that they produce. Common in tribal and rural communities. Innovation and economic progress was typically low. Command economy, when it comes to command economy, contained a centralized structure. The government ruling classes control the economy. So here we have command from the economy, government. They own the resources and business, decide what to produce, how to produce, and whom to produce. Okay. Market economy, when it comes to this particular one, contain a decentralized structure. Market forces determine the price level and the quantity of goods and services sold. This economy is based on the private enterprise where individual control the means of production by owning resources and business. The final one is आपका mixed economy, contain elements of traditional command and market economy. Like India is the perfect example for this. Okay? So this is all about your unit number 12. So this is your summary as per your book itself. So economics is the science that deal with the production, allocation, and uses of goods and services or the scarce resources. Economics, the science which study human behaviors as a relationship between end and square means which have alternative uses. Microeconomics is concerned with behavior of individual entities such as market firms and in households. Macroeconomics, which performance of the economy as a whole. Every society must answer three questions. First one is what, how, and whom to produce. What kind and quantities are produced among the wide range of all possible goods and services? How are resources used in producing these goods? And for whom are the goods are produced, right? So these are the three fundamental question of economy. A market economy is one which individual and private firms make the major decision about the production and consumption. A command economy, the government address the major economic questions, and no contemporary society nations fall completely into either आपका polar or extreme categories like command or your market economy. So all societies, they have a mixed structure, or most of the economies in the world nowadays, they have a mixed structure itself, right? So this is the one. So these are the course content, very important unit, because this will help you to build your understanding for unit number 15 also, theories of interest, as well as like you'll definitely see one or two question for 2 marks. Downside 2 marks question you are going to face from based on this, and downside 2 to 3 marks question based on theories of interest, right? So overall, like these two units, if you combine, so you'll see 4 to 5 marks question based on these ones. So very important one, law of supply and law of demand. So the demand schedule, which is demand curve, diminishing marginal utility concept, forces behind demand curve, shift in demand, and the supply curve, then forces behind supply curve, shift in supply, equilibrium. Then we have effect of a shift in supply or demand curve, then changes in price and quantity, right? So these are the course content, and every subtopic is important, and we are going to discuss all these particular subtopics in detail. So we'll try to build our understanding around these particular one. They are very, very important one for your upcoming examination, and you have to be very careful around this particular unit, right? So first we will be discussing the core concept. Then we will be practicing PYQs as well as expected questions from this particular one. So let's start the session with the demand curve or demand schedule. So when it comes to the demand schedule, it is all about the relationship between price and quantity, right? So the basic crux of demand and supply is, so demand which is get decided, or the deciding factors are consumers. When it comes to supply, so the deciding elements or the decision maker is basically sellers or the enterprise or the businesses. Okay? So basically it is a general tendency, as a consumer we want to buy things at a lower price. So that means if the prices will come down, there will be more demands for the quantity demanded will be at higher side, and they have like vice versa. If the prices will go up, so quantity demanded will be at lower side. When it comes to the supply side, or the supply schedule, or the supply curve, or the law of supply, so sellers, they want to sell their goods at a higher price. That means at higher price they want to sell more quantity, and at a lower price they want to sell less quantity. So the point where demand schedule cross the supply schedule, that point is known as equilibrium, and that is the market price, right? So this is the around like the core of this particular unit. Now the factors which generally affect demand curve and supply curve, so these are some areas which we are going to understand in this one. So we will start our discussion with the demand curve. So when it comes to demand curve, so it is like, let's say this is the prices and this is quantity demanded. So if price will be at, so assume that this is the first level, this is second level, this is third level. So let's say it is 100, it is assume it is 50 and it is 10. So if price will be 100, so the quantity demanded will be at lesser side. Okay, so these are the quantity demanded. So if the price is 100, so we'll demand less quantity. If price is 50, so this will be the demand. And if this the price is 10, the quantity demanded will be at higher side. So this slope, when it comes to the demand curve, so demand curve which generally move from left to rightwards downwards. Take left to right downwards. So that means if demand curve is moving left to right downwards, that means there is a more demands from the customer side. And how this demand drive or how this curve move? So there is a relation between price and quantity demanded. So that means if the price is at higher side, so the quantity demanded will be at lesser side again. So this is the first one. And if the prices will be at lesser side, so the quantity demanded will be at higher side. So this is the basic logic behind this one. Very simple one. We generally follow this particular one on our daily basis, right? So a demand schedule is a table that shows the quantity of a particular goods or services that consumers are willing to buy at various prices during a specific period of time, right? So as like at this they want to buy less, at this they want to buy more, right? So it illustrates the relationship between price of product and quantity demanded. So the law of demand, which is something, so as the price of goods or services increase, as the price of uh, goods and services increase, the quantity demanded will decrease or vice versa. Vice versa means as the prices will decrease, quantity will increase. So this is the simple relation between your demand, the relationship between prices and a quantity demanded, and that is generally known as law of demand. It is called law of demand. So this is the one. So let's say there is a commodity whose if the prices is 500, quantity demanded is 9. If the prices is 100, quantity demanded is 220, right? So 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. This is the price and this is quantity demanded, right? So if price is 500, we have only like the demand is 9. This is the point. Okay? And if prices are 100, the quantity demanded is 20. So this relationship is generally known as law of demand. Very simple one. Everybody know about this particular one. You just have to make crystal like clarity around this particular one. Okay? So you should not have any sort of confusion, because when you'll see the statement based question, you have to apply these particular one. And very simple, believe me, like once we're done with the concept part, once we'll follow the practice and all or PYQs, you will be able to answer all those particular one, right? So now factor determining this slope. Okay, why this slope move downwards right side. Okay. So the demand curve is a fundamental concept in economics that illustrate the relationship between prices of goods and quantity demanded. The slope and position of the demand curve are influenced by several factors. Okay. So now like what is the situation where this demand curve will move like this will move downwards, right side downwards. If it is moving right side downwards, that means there is the quantity demanded is increasing, or there is a high demand for that goods and services. Now or if it is moving to the opposite direction, आपका left towards upper side, so that means there is a less demand. So what are the factors which generally affect the overall market demand? So these are the factors. So one by one, price of goods. So now we all know about this particular one. Price of goods means when the price of goods, so see, if there is a high price, if prices will be higher, the quantity demanded will be lower. So that is the plain that is the law of demand. Okay? And vice versa, the price, when prices will come down, the quantity demanded will increase. So first thing, very simple one. Another one is income of consumers. Okay? So when it comes to income of consumers, so when income of consumer will increase, the quantity demanded will also increase. This is also known as income effect, right? So this is the relationship. So let's say if you are earning 1 lakh rupees, after your increment, let's assume you are earning 1 lakh 30,000. So you are earning 30,000 additional. So what you will do, you will create more and more demands for your needs and wants, right? So that means the quantity demanded will increase in the market itself. The third one is price of related goods. Now we have two type of goods. One is substitute goods, another one is complementary goods. So when it comes to, like, we have two type of goods, okay? So substitute goods, when it comes to substitute goods, okay? So substitute goods means which is a kind of replacement, okay? Let's say for tea we have coffee. So now like when prices of substitute goods will increase, when prices of substitute goods will increase, the quantity demanded for your goods commodity will increase. Okay? So how this relation will work? Let's say our good is we are selling tea in the market, and when the prices of coffee will increase, so some people, to right now those who are consuming coffee, they'll shift to the tea itself. So the other relation is when prices of substitute goods will decrease, so some people from tea they'll shift to coffee. So that means when prices of substitute goods will decrease, the quantity demanded will also decrease. The another one is complementary. So when it comes to complementary goods, so in this particular case, when prices of complementary goods will increase, the quantity demanded will decrease. Complementary goods like bread and butter, right? So if prices of butter will increase, people will consume less bread. Or it is cars and petrol. So if prices of petrol will increase, people will buy less number of cars. So when prices of complementary goods increase, complementary goods increase, quantity demanded will decrease. Or when prices of complementary goods decrease, quantity demanded will increase. Like let's say if petrol become 50 rupees per liter, people will buy more and more cars. So that is the relation between these two. I hope this is clear. We'll be discussing all these in detail, but first let's make a basic understanding around these particular one. Taste and preferences. Okay. So taste and preferences of consumers. So if their taste and preferences is changing, there will be low demands, right? If they are like, let's say, and this happens so many times in today's world, where taste and preferences of people, they generally change from one product to another, right? Like in case of music industry or film industry or even something else also, right? So if people taste fashion related products and all, so if people taste and preferences are changing from one product to another, so for demand for your product will decrease in the market itself. Number of buyers, if number of buyers will increase, your quantity demanded will also increase. If number of buyers, this is something related to population. If population will increase, your demand will increase. Like country like India, government policies and regulations, sometimes government policies and regulation which also affect your demand, positive side as well as negative side. Let's say government imposing some sort of taxes on your product, so it will become costlier, so the prices will go up, people will demand less, or vice versa. Seasonal factors, there are some seasonal goods like in winters there is a more and more demand for tea and coffee. In summers there is a more and more demand for cold drinks and any other soft drinks. So right, that is the one. So this is the one. So these are the factors which generally affect our demand curve, right? So here we have the detailed explanation also. Increase in income for normal goods. When consumers income rise, they can afford to buy more, as I gave you your example. Increase in population, more buyer lead to more demands. So next, taste and preferences. If a goods become more popular or fashionable, demand may increase, or vice versa, right? Next one, expectations of future price increase. This is something speculation about the commodity also. This happens so many times, right? So like it can be due to stock holdings. Like sometime it happened for onion and tomatoes now. Suddenly the prices increased to from 30 rupees to 300. The reason is stock holdings and all. Okay, so when we have expectation, like let's say in case of gold also, so let's, if you have expectations ki the gold prices will go in next 5 years 2 lakh rupees, right now it is 1 lakh per 10 gram. So what people will do, they'll purchase gold, more and more gold, okay, because they have expectation that prices will increase. Even in case of shares also, if you think ki this company share price will increase, you'll buy more shares, so the demand will increase, that will lead to the prices, right? So if people expect prices arise in future, they might buy more. Decrease in price of complementary goods, complementary and substitute. Okay? So when it comes to complementary, that butter in bread, or that diesel or petrol and cars, right? So if the prices of goods that is used together with the product decrease, people will buy more. If the petrol prices will become 50, people buy more cars, right? In case of substitute goods, when it comes to substitute goods, if the prices of substitute goods increase, so people or consumers may buy more of this product instead, right? So as I gave you an example of tea and coffee, let's say the tea prices are 10 rupees, coffee prices are 20 rupees. If coffee 15 rupees, let's assume, if coffee prices become 15 to 20 rupees, so there are some consumers, those who right now consuming coffee, they'll shift to tea instead of going for that 20 rupees. So that is something which is part of this one. And it will have reverse effect also. If the prices of substitute goods will decrease, that if it become 15 to 10, there are people, it will affect your demand for your products at lower side, because the quantity demanded for coffee will increase, because there are many people who will shift from tea to coffee. That is the one. So these are the factors which generally affect our demand schedule. Hope this is clear to everyone. This is something which is very, very important one, because one question you guys are going to face around this particular one. Mostly that question will be a statement in nature, right? Next one. Now, this is something again very important one. Again. So, shift in demand and expectations of exceptions of law of demand. So, few things we have already discussed, but there are other goods also. Again, so we will discuss this one. So, a shift in demand happen when factor other than price influence the quantity demanded. This include changes in income. This we have discussed. Preferences, external economic conditions. For example, during economic growth, people may demand more for automobile even if prices remain constant, right? When average income increase, income effect, it is called income effect. Okay. Consumers can afford to buy more goods and services. This result in rightward shift. That means the demand is increasing, meaning higher demands at every price level. The economic boom in 2006-8 in India saw a rise in car demands due to increase in income. Then we have some good types also. Again, Veblen goods. Veblen goods are luxury goods. They are symbol of status. So if the prices of iPhone is increasing, it is not going to affect their demand. The prices of iPhone is increasing, people are buying more and more iPhones. Prices of BMW or any other cars, any other luxury cars, or any other luxury houses and all, if they are increasing, that demand will also increase, because they are symbol. So law of demand that does not apply on these particular. These are the exceptions of this law of demands, right? So such luxury brands do not follow the law of demand. Instead, their demand rise as their prices increase, because they are seen as status symbol, right? So this is the one. The contradict the statement that they experience reduced demand when their prices decrease. If the prices of that Mercedes will decrease, people will move out from that one, because it now everybody will have the Mercedes. So that is, there is no symbol in that particular one. So that is the basic economics which generally applies here. So that's why they never keep they always keep their prices, and they build their product for a specific segments. Okay? So that is the logic. Giffen goods, these are like the normal goods like salt or any other products. Their prices, they do follow this demands. So unlike normal goods, shown a rise in demand when their prices increase. It is like if prices of salt will increase, people won't stop eating salt. They'll consume that particular one. So their consumption will increase, or even their demands will be remain stag, or it will start increasing. People start storing those particular one. So again, the exceptions of the demand curve. Okay. These are typically inferior goods that low income consumers rely on, such as staple foods. When their prices rise, people reduce consumption of more expensive substitute and buy more of cheaper staple instead, right? Necessary goods, again exceptions, similar, जैसे आपका curd or milk or others, salt and others, like medicines and basic food staples do not see the demand fluctuation due to price changes. Regardless of cost, people continue to buy them. Government often intervenes to keep their prices stable, to protect the consumer also. Changes in income effect can alter the purchasing behaviors, leading to the deviations from law of demands. Higher income may encourage more spending despite rising prices, while the lower income can cause people in delay purchase even if prices drop, right? So this is something. So this is a kind of a summary which you have to remember. Please go through these particular one, do revise these particular one. Believe me, if you have understood all these particular one, you are good to go for this particular topic, right? Now supply curve. So demand schedule, hope this is clear to everyone. Now the other one is supply schedule. Supply curve, when it comes to supply curve, so the curve which how we design this particular one thing. So it is like, let's say it is something like this. It is upwards. So this is your supply curve. Okay, so this is your supply curve. It generally move upwards. So basically, this is price and this is quantity demanded. So sellers, they want to sell their product higher quantity at a higher price. They want to sell less at a lesser price. Okay, let's say the price is 500, so they want to sell more. If the price is 100, they want to sell less. So that is the logic. Okay? So demand curve, which is from the consumer side, and supply curve, which is from the supplier side, seller side, right? So as a being a seller, being a owner of that particular product, or you always want to sell your product at higher price. So this is the basic theory, right? So that means the relation is, when it comes to the law of supply, so your law of supply is the price of goods and services increase, the quantity supplied increase. Okay? So if prices, the quantity supplies increase, where they are increasing their supply, when they are getting higher price, and the quantity supply by the seller will be decrease when the price of the goods and services will decrease. At lower price, they want to sell less. At, like, let's say you own 100 kg of gold, so now you want to sell that particular one at highest price, right? That is your psychology, because you are a seller, you are a owner of that particular product. You want to sell less at a lower price. So that is basic demand, law of supply. So a supply schedule is a table that shows the quantity of a goods or service that producers are willing to sell at a various price during the specific period. And this various pricing is, at lower price you want to sell, or you want to sell lower quantity of goods. At higher price you want to sell at higher price of goods, right? So this is the chart which will help you to make your understanding. Like, let's say quantity supplied, so 500 max at 18, we want to sell 18 quantities. At 100 we want to sell minimum, that is 8, okay, as a supplier. So 100 we want to sell how much, aapka 8. So this is the one, this D point is here. So you want to sell the 8 at this particular one, at the 100, at sorry, uh, it should be like, this. It should be, let's say it is 10. Okay? There is wrong in this one. Okay? So at this point you want to sell 10. Okay? This is the one. At 500 points you want to sell max aapka, that is 18. Okay? So let's say it is 18. So you want to sell this one. So this is the psychology of the sellers, and that is generally, that psychology is called your law of supply. Now again, same thing, same. So when it comes to the forces behind the supply curve, so these are the forces. So the supply curve in economics illustrate the relationship between the price of goods and quantity supplied. So when it comes to the law of demand, it is relationship between price and quantities demanded. It is price and quantity supplied, right? So that is the one, right? So various factor or forces which influence the position and slope of supply curve, like price of goods. If the price will be higher, the supply will be at higher. So this is the logic here. In that case, there is a reverse rule. If the price will be higher, quantity demanded will be lower, right? Cost of production, if cost of production will be higher, the supply cost will be at higher, obviously. Okay? So the price of related goods also. Okay? So complementary as well as your the substitute goods. Okay? Number of sellers, if there will be more number of sellers, the prices will come, the supply will be less. The government policies and natural events and conditions, where we generally do some sort of people, they generally demand or they generally start storing things and all, that will the one. Cost of production, if the cost of production will increase, it should be decrease. Aapka quantity demand supply should be decrease. Aapka. Why it is decrease? Because the cost will increase at higher price. So people will you have to build the relation between demand and supply both. Seller want to supply more quantity, but consumers want to buy that lower one. So you have to follow that equilibrium also. We'll come to that one. So equilibriums. So now equilibriums, price and quantity. So this is the point where basically demand and supply curve, they generally interact with each other. Intersection point aapka, this is the one. So basically in real market, how we decide the prices. So first I'll quickly revise this one. So law of supply, which is from supplier side. Supply, they want to sell their product at higher prices. This is the basically representation of your law of supply. If prices are higher, we are selling more, we are supplying more quantity. If prices are lower, we are supplying less number of quantity. Factors, we have price of goods, like higher price, we want to supply more. Cost of production, if it is cost of production is high, we want to sell product at higher price. And if it is low, we want to sell at lower price. That was the correct one that you have to interpret in raise one. Price of related goods, sometimes it also affect our decision making. Let's say if we have related goods like complementary goods, if they are increasing their prices, so we can also increase. If they are decreasing, we have to decrease. In case of that the other goods of that complementary and I just missed this one. So basically the substitute goods aapka, so substitute goods also. So you have to take care around that one. Government policies also for some specific goods where government have some sort of control ki you cannot sell these kind of products more than that, like especially in case of necessity goods and all. So that is something. And even sometimes taxes in others, like we have TCS or cess on some products after a certain pricing and also, you have to consider that one also, right? So this is the one. Okay, chal. Now equilibrium. So when it comes to the equilibrium, so this is the point where your supply curve, sorry, your demand curve will generally interact with your supply curve. So that is the point. So this is the surplus, this is aapka shortage. So this shortage and surplus will be adjusted through this. Let's say like to first one is, let's say this is demand curve. So customer, they want to sell this marker at 500 rupees. So they want to sell it at 500. So there are very less number of buyers. Let's say there is very less number of buyers, 10. If they want to sell this particular one at 200, there are 100 buyers. So this is the point, 200 aapka. So now supply curve, when it comes to supply curve, so supply curve move upward, rightward upward. So if you want to sell your product at 500, you want to sell more at this particular point. Let's say you want to sell 100 here, and customers at 200, there are customers, those who want to buy 10 rupee, 10 or any other quantity. So now like if you, this is the case of surplus, this is a case of shortage, right? So like if let's say there is a buyer in the market, they want to purchase your product, but they want to purchase it at 200, but you are telling ki you want to sell it at 500, right? So there is no match. So then there will some sort of negotiation will happen between like with the market factors. That negotiation point, earlier it was in surplus and this was in deficit, shortage आपका, ठीक है? Because we want to sell it 500 but there is no buyers. So the point where buyer and seller meet their expectations with each others, this is the point where seller want to sell that product at this price and buyer want to buy that particular product at that same price. That is, in this case, we have some sort of surplus or we have some sort of shortage. So this point when these two are agreeing to buy or sell the same product at same price in a given time duration, that is generally known as equilibrium, right? So equilibrium in the context of supply and demand refer to a state where the quantity of goods or services that buyer are willing to and able to purchase. Willingness, they do have willingness. They want to purchase that particular market at 200 and they have ability to purchase that particular. They do have income level so they can meet those particular expectations. Seller, they have willing to sell that particular product at 200 and within that 200 they are able to manage their cost and everything. So that is ability. So that more is required, that equal the quantity that seller are willing and able to say sell that particular one. So at this point the market is considered to be a balance and there is no tendency for the price to change. So this is the point. After the negotiation between surplus and shortage, we reach to this particular point itself. So equilibrium price and quantity. So equilibrium price, the price at which quantity demanded equal to quantity supplied, and quantity quantity that both supplied and demanded at the equilibrium price. So that cross point. So that is generally known as your equilibrium point itself. Okay? What are the reason why this demand curve moved to the rightwards or leftwards? Okay? So that is given here. So these are some like kind of additional readings which will help you to make your understanding more stronger, right? So factors that make production more efficient or sorry, supply curve stream. So when, what are the reasons or what are the scenarios when that supply curve move to the rightwards or leftward? Okay. So factors that make production more efficient or less costly, like technological upgradation, such as technological advancement, usually lead to an increase in supply at every price level. Let's say earlier we were using old methods, and to produce one marker the cost is 100 rupees. After a technological advancement, now we can produce this marker at 50 rupees. So our profit margin get increased. Like earlier we were selling at 120 rupees. Now our profit margin was 20 rupees. But now if we can produce that particular one at 50 rupees, that there is a gap of 70 rupees. So we would like to sell more so we can generate more and more profit. So that is the one. This caused the supply curve to shift to the right, indicating the producers are willing to supply more quantity at the same price at 120, because now our profit margin increased from 20 to 70. That is the one. When it shift to the leftward shift means where the quantity supplies is decreasing. In this particular case, quantity supply is increasing. Here we are decreasing the supply because it is increasing the cost. It may be due to the government taxes or any other factor, increase in production cost and others. So factors that make production more difficult or costly, such as government regulation or taxes, typically reduce the quantity supplied at each price level. This caused the supply curve to shift to the left, reflecting a decrease in supply for the same point. Let's say that 120 was the price. Earlier, our profit margin was 20 rupees. Now, government increased additional, they put additional 5 rupees taxes. So, your profit margin came down to 15 rupees. Now, you have 2 point, either you want to sell at 125 to maintain that 20 rupees profit margin, or else you want to sell less at 120 rupees. So that is the logic behind this. This chart should be before that equilibrium points, but still I hope this is clear to everyone, right? So let's summarize this particular one. Okay. So demand, supply and market equilibrium. These are the 3 pointers. This unit is very, very important, especially for unit 15 also, because while you decide the interest, where we have the same thing. Supply of money which is created by the investors, they want to invest at higher side. Okay. And demand which is made by the borrowers, corporate borrowers or individual borrowers, they want to take loan at a lower rate. So when we decide this interest, so that demand curve or आपका supply schedule and the equilibrium will be the point where we will be deciding the rate of interest. And for monetary and fiscal policy, for overall money supply, we have IS and LM curve, right? So that's why to understand that one, this is very important one, huh? So price demand relationship, there is a direct link between goods prices and the quantity demanded, represented by the demand curve. So if prices will increase, quantity demanded will decrease. If price will decrease, quantity demanded will increase. So law of price, law of demand, as price increase, demand decrease or vice versa. Market demand curve, it is derived by the adding individual demand at each level. Shift in demand, changes in non-price factors like income, taste, shift the demand curve, affecting the demand at every price. If income will increase, demand will increase. If taste and preferences, if your product become trending, so they'll purchase more on this. Apart from this, we have income effect, we have substitute effect, we have complementary effect, we have government regulations and others. Supply curve, which shows sellers, they want to sell their product at higher price. So if higher price, more quantity will be supplied. If lower price, less quantity will be supplied. So it shows relationship between commodities price and quantity producers are willing to supply. So when non-price factors like input cost, technology changes, it cause the supply curve to shift. Like if input cost will decrease, technological advancement will happen, so you will be able to produce goods or services at a lower cost. So you want to sell more quantity at that market price, right? So that is the one, because your overall profit will increase. Market equilibrium occurs when demand equal to supply. So that intersection point is called equilibrium. Equilibrium in competitive market found at intersection of demand and supply curve, ensuring full satisfaction for both buyer and sellers. So ability to sell, ability and willingness to sell, ability and willingness to buy. That is the point. So where they are both the parties having maximum satisfaction. Impact of changes and any change in underlying supply or demand factors result in shift in supply curve. So like it can be income, price, substitution, or others effect. Okay. Shift in curve, and after market equilibrium, price and quantity also, that will also change, right? So this is the one. So at demand curve, there will be a movement in demand curve and supply curve. There will be simultaneously a movement in the equilibrium price also. So that is called market factors. If demand and supply, if demand is increasing or supply is decreasing, obviously the prices will go up. If demand is decreasing, so that means supply will also decrease, so prices will come down. So that is something, that is the logic behind this particular one, right? When it comes to unit number 15, theories of interest, you can expect 2 to 3 marks question based on this particular unit. And these are the areas. Okay? So classical theory of rate of interest, Keynes liquidity preference theory, both are very important, right? Then determination of rate of interest, equilibrium in the money market, effect of increase in the money supply. Then we have shift in money demand or liquidity preference curve. Hicks and Hayson synthesis, that is also known as IS and LM curve for goods and money market. IS and LM curve and fiscal and monetary policy, right? So these are the subtopics which are generally part of this particular one. In your curriculum, they have given the basic areas around this particular one. So we will be understanding the concept very first. And see guys, when it comes to the interest rate theories, like how interest rate get determined in the market, right? So we have two factors again. One is supply factor. Supply is generally done by the savers, like basically it is done by individuals or like those who save money, right? So income holders or money holders, they always want to lend their money at a higher rate or invest their money at higher rate. And the demand side is generally created by borrowers, so they always want to borrow at a lower price, right? So where this intersection happen between the supply curve and demand curve, that is the point which is known as equilibrium, and that is something related to your interest or for that particular security, right? It is similar to that demand curve by the consumers, that is influenced by the consumers, the price and quantity demanded, and supply curve which is done by the seller or manufacturer. Okay? They all supplier always want to sell their goods or things at a higher prices, right? So the intersection point is known as equilibrium, and that is the market price for that particular goods and services, right? So similarly here also, now we have Keynes theory also. So Keynes viewpoint about the basically investments or holding money is different. There are three assumptions or three areas. It can be transaction motive, contingency, or investment, right? We'll be discussing those one. Then IS and LM curve, which help us to design our monetary policies and fiscal policy and the goods market and the money market also, right? So we will start with the basic one, as I told you. Like, see, so this is your supply curve. Supply curve, again, the law of supply. I hope you remember the same movements. And this is your demand curve. So buyers, the basically the borrowers, they always want to borrow more at a lower interest rate. So that when interest rate is this, so they are borrowing less amount. When interest rate is this, they are borrowing high amount. And savers, they always want to save or invest more amount at higher rate. So when the rate of interest is this, they are investing less. When the rate of interest is this, they are investing higher side. So that is similar to your demand and supply. And the intersection point is called equilibrium, and that is the market interest. So this is the way how we generally determine the interest rate in the market. Let's decode this one. So classical theory of rate of interest, which is also known as loanable fund theory, which is developed by Adam Smith, Alfred Marshall, A.C. Pigou, and Kurt Wixel. So it explains how interest rate is determined by the forces supply and demand in the capital market itself, right? So I hope this is clear now. So this is something which is very important one, right? So main components of this particular theory. So first one is supply. Supply of loanable funds. Supply is created by investors, right? Those who save money. So an investor, they always want to invest their money at high rate. The simple logic. So households save portion of their income which become available for the lending. So household, they generally deposit money with financial institution. Financial institution, they channelize that particular one or mobilize that particular funds to the corporate houses or the borrowers, right? It can be retail or the your corporate. Okay? So let's say it is as simple as that. Like as an investor, you'll always have some expectations with your funds. You always want to invest that particular one at high rate. And as a borrower, when you are acting as a borrower, so you always want to borrow at lower rate of interest, right? So higher interest rate encourage more saving. That's why this is the logic. Demand side, which is create demand side of loanable funds, investments. So businesses and individual borrow money for investment purpose, like it can be investment in like properties, cars, or anything else, right? In businesses and all. So lower interest rate encourage more borrowings and investment in this particular one, right? That means that when we will get less rate of interest, when there will be more supply, and if there will be more supply, people will invest less. So we have different ideas that intersection point, that is called equilibrium. So the market the market interest rate is determined at a point, at the point where savings supply of funds equal to investment, which is demand for that fund. Okay? So this is your let's say this is your supply curve, and this is your demand curve, right? So this is the point which is called equilibrium, right? This is your equilibrium point. This is surplus, and this is your shortage or deficit. So this is the point where this will be the rate of interest for those particular securities as well, right? So this is something which is all about the theory, the basic or the introduction of theories of interest, right? So this is your equilibrium point, and this is your supply, and this is your, sorry, this is your demand curve, move left to rightwards, and supply curve which move left to upwards, right? Right upwards, same. So this is the one similar to your law of demand and law of supply. The rate of interest which generally get decided where demand curve which generally cross the supply curve. So this point is known as your equilibrium point. So graphical representation, supply curve, savings, slope upward. So this is your supply curve, it move upward. And when it comes to so it generally show people save more at higher rate of interest. If rate of interest is this, we are saving less. If rate of interest is this, we are saving more. Like let's say if you get rate of interest of 10%, let's say this is the situation. If you are like, let's say in saving accounts, we are getting this. In mutual fund, we are getting this. So people are shifting to this particular one. That is the reason. The another one is demand curve, which generally slope downwards. So this is the one. Okay, this is your moment of demand curve. So it indicate business borrow more when interest rate are lower, right? So if interest rate is this, we are borrowing less. When interest rate is this, we are borrowing more. So that is the simple logic behind this. So the intersection, the intersection of these curve determine the equilibrium interest rate. That is the market interest rate for that particular security, right? So this is the basic fundamentals. Now, so key assumptions, please do remember these particular one also. Perfect competition. So the market operate without external interventions. Like these are the assumptions for the your interest rate theory, right? So like while we are saying ki this will be the overall entire journey of this one, we are assuming this is the market condition, or these factors will remain constant, right? So full employment, the economy always utilize its resources efficiently. Saving investment equality, interest rate adjusts to maintain equilibrium between saving and investment. Money neutrality, so money only affect prices, not real economic variables. So that is the one. Please do remember this one. Sometimes they ask for half marks, though they are not given in your book, but it is something related, important related to this particular one, right? Now, theories of interest, the summary of this, whatever you have studied so far, also known as capital theory of interest or loan theory. So, saving investment theory or real theory of interest, developed by economists like Marshall, Fisher, and Pigou. So, core concept is the interest rate is determined by equilibrium of demand and supply of savings and investment, where interest is the price paid for the saving to meet investment demands, right? Real phenomena. So interest is influenced solely by the real factors, supply and demand for the capital, where capital supply is driven by the thrift, which is saving, and time preferences, and demand by capital productivity. Okay? So far we have discussed these particular things, the theories of interest, and this is the kind of a summary which will help you to revise or to memorize things. Now we'll enter to the Keynes theory of liquidity preference theory. So Keynes liquidity preference theory, again very important. So many times you'll see this particular one also in examination, right? So John Maynard Keynes liquidity preference theory outlined in his book. The name of that book is General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. So explain the demand for money as the individual and businesses preferences for holding liquidity asset over less liquidity asset. Take like people, he generally explain things कि basically how this demand arise and how we make the supply. Okay? So people they always want to hold more liquid asset in their hand. So that is cash compared to less liquid, like that is investment in bonds where we have some sort of fixed maturities and all, right? So Keynes viewed the rate of interest as a reward for the pertaining with the liquidity, how you are holding or managing that liquidity, and at the time of opportunity how you are encasing that particular one, that is something, that is the reward, how you can maximize the benefit of that particular money itself. Okay? He generally explained there are three motives behind the holding this liquid or this cash. So people have three different motive to hold the money or to hold the cash. First one is transaction motive. It is something related to your day-to-day activities, or for business it is working capital, right? So liquidity preference for setting daily expenses, like for an individual the daily stuff, and for businesses their working capital usually. Okay. Precautionary money or precautionary motive, this is something for the contingency, right? So additional liquidity preference for unexpected expenses or any sort of contingency, again in businesses as well as individual. Speculative, this is something they wait for the good opportunity when they saw some sort of higher interest, when they expect ki now this is the best time to invest or the rate of interest will go up in the coming time, they'll use that speculative money and they'll invest in their market itself. So retain liquidity if interest rate is low. At the time when interest will low, they'll retain that one. When the interest rate will high, they'll invest that particular one. So as per Keynes, people, the motive behind holding this particular cash, people they generally prefer more cash or more liquid, basically that is called holding liquid assets, cash, over the less liquid asset. Okay? Why we are holding this liquid assets? We have three motive. One is your transaction motive for the day-to-day stuff or for the businesses day-to-day activities. Precautionary, any sort of contingency or any additional expenses occur, so we use this one. And third one is your speculative. Speculative is something at the time of low interest rate we hold, as interest rate will start rising, we'll invest that particular one. So this is something which is the core or the crux of liquidity preference theory of Keynes. Let's decode these particular one in detail. This is something which is very, very important one and very easy also to understand, because we also do the same thing in our general life, so that help us to manage our overall cash and all. Like we also divide our money or whatever earnings we are having among different categories. So Keynes will generally define among three areas. First one is transaction motive, precautionary motive, and speculative motive. So when it comes to sorry, so when it comes to the first one, again, so transaction motive relate to demand for cash for current transactions by individual and businesses. Individual bridge income expense gap income motives, while businesses maintain cash for immediate need, like raw material, transportation, wages, which is usually known as working capital, right? Precautionary motive, it involve holding cash for unforeseen contingencies such as illness, accident, unemployment. Businesses keep it for weather, bedtime, or seize unexpected opportunities. Speculative motive is drive the desire to keep resources liquid to profit from future changes in interest rate or bond prices. So the at the time when bond prices will low, you'll hold that particular money. When it is expected by the market ki rate of interest will go up, you'll invest that particular one, right? So bond prices and interest rate are inversely connected. So rising bond prices, falling interest rate, prompt buying, while the falling bond prices, rising interest rate lead to selling to avoid the losses. Okay, this is very general phenomena. I hope everybody is aware about this. Okay, so simply like when it comes to the bond prices and interest rate, if bond prices will increase or if interest rate will decrease in the market, so people will shift to the bonds. They'll invest more and more in bonds. if interest rate in the normal market will increase, they'll like the bond prices in the market will decrease. So that is the one. So interest rate impacts, according to Keen, a higher interest rate reduce speculative demand for money, where lower interest rate increase for it, right? So this is the one. So this is something which is very, very important one. So this is my request to all of you guys. Please do remember these one, and very simple to understand also. So many time I have experienced ki question like there can be one question for 2 marks. Which of the following statement is right or wrong about the Keynes theory of interest, right? Or it can be directly related to this for 1 marks also, right? Now, the next point or the next area of this particular topic is IS and LM curve. This is again also very important because our monetary policy, fiscal policy, or the goods market, or the your money market interest rate is get determined by this particular one, right? So IS and LM model is a macroeconomic tool that analyze the relationship between interest rate and income or output in the short run. It combined the goods market, which represent by the IS curve. So IS curve, which generally represent to good market, and LM curve, which generally represent to money market, right? So, and the money market is represented by LM curve to find the equilibrium point for the interest rate and output, right? So while we are deciding interest rate in money market or finding out the interest rate in money market, we use LM curve. For the goods market, it is IS curve. Okay? So the IS curve represent combination of interest rate and output where the goods market is in the equilibrium. Similarly, LM curve represent the combination where the money market is in the equilibrium. Similar to that particular, right? Goods market interest rate get decided by the IS curve, and LM curve decide the interest rate in the money market itself, right? So the intersection of the IS and LM curve determine the equilibrium interest rate and output label for the economy itself. So when it comes to the entire economy, so where IS and LM curve they intersect with each others, that is the interest rate for the economy. Changes in factors like government spending through fiscal policy, taxes, or money supply can through monetary policies and all shift either IS or LM curve, leading to a new equilibrium with different interest rate and output level. Let's say if RBI through repo rate, they generally cut down the repo rate by 50 basis point. That means there will be more liquidity in the market, more money supply in the market. So that will eventually make some changes in the IS and LM curve liquidity equilibrium also, right? So this is something you can differ. So this is point one. If they're increasing the liquidity, this will become your point two. So IS curve, the IS curve represent combination of interest rate and output level, where the goods market, where the good markets investment and saving in equilibrium, meaning the aggregate demand equal to aggregate supply. The another one is when it comes to, let's say this is your one and this is your two, and this is your LM curve. So LM curve, the interest rate represent combination of interest rate and output level, where the money market liquidity preference and money supply is equilibrium, meaning the demand for money is equal to supply. So see, this is your, so when this is your IS curve and this is your LM curve. So for first one, for first situation, this is the interest rate. This will be your market interest rate. The combination of IS and LM curve, or the point where IS and LM curve intersect each other. So that is your market interest rate. So this will be your first point. And this is yours, like if there is more liquidity, so this will be become your the another equilibrium. So basically when it comes to IS curve, it generally show the goods, the demand for goods and supply for goods, right? So the another one is when it comes to LM curve, the money market, the supply of money and the demand for money. So when these point intersect, when IS curve intersect LM curve, so that is your market interest rate. So in case this is your first market interest rate, When these increase, this will become your second market interest rate. So this is the one. Okay? If they are like this, why this is changing from this to this? Because of government, they decrease the taxes, or they increase money supply in the market through like let's say RBI increase money supply or liquidity in the market. So that is the reason behind this particular one, right? So IS LM model is a macroeconomic model that analyzes the short-term short-run equilibrium in both goods market and money market, showing how interest rate and output interact with each other. Interest rate means like it is something ki if like the rate, the point of interest rate at present economy, okay, so overall economic interest rate and your GDP output, right? So if interest rate will increase, GDP will also increase because there will be more consumption in the market itself. So ISLM model, also known as Hicks and Hayson model because it is given by them, is a simplified framework used to understand how monetary policy and fiscal policies affect a closed economy output and interest rate in the short term, assuming prices are fixed. So policy analysis, the ISLM help policymakers understand how change in monetary policy, change in the money supply and the fiscal policy, change in government spending can affect the output and interest rate in the economy itself. So whenever governments they come up with any sort of liquidity decision, if they are increasing or decreasing the overall money supply by using their defined tools, so what will be the change in the overall economy? That change they can predict or they can analyze by using IS and LM curve, right? So in your curriculum, they have given very core areas, very simple areas. You have to be stick to that particular one, right? If you'll study this particular topic for exam like UPSC and all, so this is they are in very detail. Like for Keynes theory, we do have a 3 hour session and all, right? So even for IS and LM curves, it is very in detail. But like we do not have that much of time, first of all, and another one is we have to stick to the course content itself, right? If I'll tell you the entire theory, you will be like lost after some time, right? So just focus on the examination. So now the summary. So this is all about this unit summary. So interest and theories of interest rate determination. So type of income. Interest is one of the 4 type of income. Like the income method, I hope you remember, right? So land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. So payment for risk, payment for inconvenience, and pure interest. So these are the kind of income which generally get included. Interest as a price, the rate of interest is determined by supply and demand for the money or loan. Keynes liquidity preference theory, so that intersection point which generally decide the rate, आपका interest rate as per this particular one. Now Keynes preference theory, interest is reward for pertaining with liquidity, and people prefer more liquid assets, and they pertain their liquidity for to achieve the 3 motive. One is okay, it is not given here. So 3 motive. First one is your transaction motive, another one is precautionary motive, contingencies, and third one is speculative motive. So liquidity preference, demand for money to hold, supply for money. So money demand to asset economy. So people decide how to balance money and bonds in their portfolios. Determinant of money demand curve, level of nominal income, and expected expectations of future bond prices affecting the interest rate expectations. So that means if in future the bond prices will be low, so people will hold more money. If in future there is some expectations ki bond prices will go up, so people will invest in the bonds. So interest and that bond prices, they are inversely related. So that is the logic or the bond theorem also. Keen views saving investment equality, not the interest rate, but changes in income equalize the saving and investment. Then we have IS and LM framework, Hicks and Hayson, combine classical and Keynesian's view into a consistent theory using IS for goods market, LM for money market. So IS which shows the interest difference income levels based on the investment and saving, And IS-ILM intersection will determine the equilibrium interest rate based on the interactions of income and interest rate variables in an economy. So, like where IS and LM curve or LM the graph is crossing each other, that point is your rate of interest in the economy itself, right? 17, which is all about your monetary policy and fiscal policy. So one of the easiest topic from this particular module, because when it comes to monetary policy and fiscal policy, which is also commonly known as budget, so we all are aligned around this particular one, and so many times we generally go through the updates related to monetary policy and fiscal policy. Okay. So monetary policy, which is get decided by the RBI itself, and it is a job or which is done by central bank, and fiscal policy, which generally comes under the preview of Government of India, which is like performed by the Ministry of Finance, right? So both the policies, with the help of both the policies, what we generally trying to do, we are generally trying to manage the overall liquidity or money supply in the economy, and targeting growth as well as inflation. For monetary policy, inflation is the primary target, and for fiscal policy, growth is the primary target, right? So in this particular session, we are going to discuss the core concept related to this particular one, which is part of your curriculum. Okay, though these topics are individually very vast, right? So, but if it comes to the Jaiib examination, they have included the tools of monetary policy and the basics of fiscal policy. That means this topic is around 70 to 80% of your monetary policy, and remaining it belongs to the fiscal policy itself, right? So tool of monetary policy, now this is outdated. Fiscal policy and FRBM Act 2002. So these are the areas which are generally part of this particular one, right? So when it comes to fiscal policy and monetary policy. So when it comes to monetary policy, basically with the help of this particular policy, RBI, they generally are managing the liquidity in the economy, and we are targeting inflation or inflation versus growth, right? So when it comes to monetary policy, the liquidity means money supply in the economy. Okay. So if we'll have surplus money supply, it will affect your inflation. Your inflation will also increase. And if there will be low money supply in the economy, so it will affect to your economic activities. That means it will directly affect your economic growth. So to create a balance between these two, we have to manage the liquidity system or the overall money supply in the economy, and that job is done by RBI by using monetary policy. For that one, like we have so many tools. I hope everybody aware about this one. Like we have tools like quantitative and qualitative, but in your curriculum they have given only quantitative tools like direct tools, CRR and SLR. Okay. Your cash reserve ratio and statutory liquidity ratio. When it comes to indirect tool, so the primary tool is repo. Then we have reverse repo versus SDF nowadays. Okay. So standing deposit facility. We have MSF, marginal standing facility. We have bank rate, right? So we have bank rate. Sorry, base rate, not bank rate. Okay. So we have base rate system. Sorry, it is bank rate only. Base rate, the other tool which is also part of this one. Okay. So there are so many tools which is used by RBI to control the overall money supply in the economy itself, right? Like let's say when it comes to CRR, it is something CRR and SLR which are generally part of the reserve system for the banking system, right? So basically every bank or commercial bank, they have to maintain a certain portion of cash with RBI, okay, or some sort of reserve with RBI in the form of cash, and RBI does not pay any interest on those particular CRR deposit as well, right? SLR is a portion of NDTL that bank need to maintain with themselves in the form of cash, gold, and government securities. When it comes to the repo rate, the rate at which RBI lend money to commercial bank for short term duration up to 90 days. So that is your repo rate. Reverse repo rate and SDF, these are the tool through which basically if bank having surplus deposit, they can deposit with RBI. In case of reverse repo rate, RBI also provide collaterals. So this is something where bank is depositing surplus money with RBI, and in case of reverse repo rate, RBI will provide some sort of collateral, but in case of SDF, RBI does not provide any collaterals. That means that's why the rate, like in case of reverse repo rate, bank get less interest, but in case of SDF, they get higher interest, right? MSF is basically it is a tool generally meet the very ultra short term requirements. The ultra short term is basically overnight, and bank rate is the rate at which RBI lend money to commercial bank for long term period. Apart from this, also we have some other tool like term repo that RBI introduced that particular one during the TLTRO, sorry, targeted long-term repo operation during the COVID-19, or we have the other tool is like MSS Market Stabilization Scheme 2004. We have open market operations, which is a process of buying and selling of government securities and others. So these all are generally comes under monetary policy. When it comes to for monetary policy and fiscal policy, they can be expansionary or contextionary. When it comes to expansionary monetary policy or fiscal policy, that means that time government or RBI, they are increasing the money supply in the economy, so they are targeting the growth itself, the growth part. And when it is contextionary monetary policy, that means where, let's say if RBI increasing the repo rate or CRR and other tools, they are controlling the money supply in the economy. That means the policy is contextionary. It will control inflation and it will affect economic growth negatively, right? Because there will be less money supply in the economy as it is a requirement of the economy itself. The other part is fiscal policy. So fiscal policy which deal with your taxation or the other government policies. So how they are generally managing the overall finance of the economy. So that generally comes under this particular, directly led by the Ministry of Finance itself, right? So in this particular session, basically we will be understanding the basic or the core areas which is related to your curriculum itself. Okay? So these topic itself, they are very vast. Like if you'll study these particular one for UPSC or RBI grade B like examination, it will take at least 4 to 5 classes. But in your curriculum, if you open your book, in case of this, but as I told you, 70% content is aligned around these one, and they have given about the monetary policy tool. Then they have talk around the RBI, that MPC and others. And in case of fiscal policy, they have given the introduction, and the other part is FRBM Act 2002 itself, right? So let's just start the discussion with this one. So monetary policy, when it comes to monetary policy, it is it is a policy or it is a policy of the central bank through which central bank is managing the overall money supply in the economy itself. As I said you, as I explained you earlier also, like when it comes to monetary policy, so the flow is something like this. Take a monetary policy through which RBI, which generally manage liquidity in the economy. Liquidity means money supply. Now this liquidity or money supply, which has two effects. If there will be high liquidity in the market, there will be problems related to inflation. Okay, so there will be high inflation in the economy, right? So if economy will have surplus money, so people will make more demands. It will lead to the demand pull inflation. The other one is other side of liquidity is if there will be less liquidity, it will reduce the consumptions or demands, that will lead to a decline in GDP, right? So what we have to do as a monetary authority, so we have to make a balance between inflation and growth. That means we have to find the suitable range of money supply for the Indian economy, right? So we have to create a balance between the inflation and growth, and for that one you have to find out the overall money supply and that is suitable for the Indian economy. So for this particular sake, monetary policy, like fiscal policy, usually they have a long term effect on the economy. When it comes to monetary policy, let's say if there is sudden rise in the prices, so monetary policy is the best tool through which we can easily, like usually the meetings happen on bi-monthly basis, ठीक है, हर 2 महीने के अंदर you'll see the meetings of MPC Monetary Policy Committee. Act wise, section 42, section 45, as per that the MPC should meet at least 4 times in a year, right? So now when it comes to this particular one, like let's say if there is a chances of rise in prices, so what they can do in their next monetary policy, they can cut the they can increase the rate. Like how this rate will work, let's say as I told you about CRR. So CRR is a portion of NDTL, net demand in time liabilities, or it is something, demand in time liabilities is something your CASA and RAFA deposit or the borrowings which is done by the bank, right? So bank, they need to deposit a certain percent of their NDTL with RBI. Okay? They have to deposit it with RBI in the form of cash. Okay? They have to deposit this particular one in the form of cash. Let's say the CRR rate is 4%. Let's assume this is 4%. That means if a bank raising 100 rupees from the market, so out of this 100 rupees, 4 rupees they have to deposit with RBI. Okay? If there is a problem of inflation, let's say it is expected by the MPC ki the inflation rate will go up. So what we'll do? Inflation is high means, or it is expected that the inflation will increase. That means there is more money supply. So they have to control the money supply. To control that money supply, what RBI will do? They'll increase a repo rate. Let's say they increase repo rate by 50 basis point. So now your new CRR will become 4.50% again. So now bank, they have to deposit with RBI 4.50%. So they'll have 50 paisa less in their hand. As a lender, they'll have 50 paisa less in their hand. So that means they'll give less loan to the customers, or if they'll have less money to give loan, so they'll offer loan at a higher rate of interest. So customer will take less loan. So that is something, the link is something related to this. Another tool is, like, let's take an example of repo rate. So suppose that like when it comes to repo rate, so it is the rate at which RBI lend money to commercial bank for short term period. So suppose that this is the cash flow. Let's assume the repo rate is 6%. Okay. So now after some time, there is, like, let's say economy is facing some sort of issues and all. Economy, the GDP growth is declining or it is constant at a same level, and inflation is in control. So now the primary objective or let's say RBI want to give some push to the Indian economy, so we can achieve the higher numbers in growth and all. So for that sake, that means there is some problem with the liquidity. There is less liquidity available in the market. So for that sake, what RBI can do? Either they can cut down the CRR rate, or they can cut down the repo rate. Let's say what RBI did. RBI cut down the repo rate by let's say 100 basis point. 100 basis point. So that means your new repo rate will become how much? 5%. So earlier bank were getting loan from RBI at 6%. Now they'll get loan at 5%. If bank will get loan at lower rate of interest, obviously their MCLR or base rate will come down. So they'll also pass on that benefit to the customers, and they'll distribute loan at a lower rate of interest to the customer. As a customer, if we'll get loan at a lower rate of interest, we'll take more loan. So that is something, the overall things or the overall game of liquidity that is command or managed by the RBI by using monetary policy, right? So sometimes the relation also, like if they give you some sort of relation oriented key, let's say in the recent monetary policy, RBI increase the repo rate, the CRR by 50 basis points. So what will be the impact on liquidity, or what will be the impact on inflation or the growth. So they can ask you these kind of questions. So when it comes to the rates, you can simply remember these one again. So if RBI, like let's say this is your rate again. If RBI decrease the rate, the liquidity in the market will increase, and what will be the impact on inflation? So your inflation will also increase. Again, if RBI increase the rate, let's say RBI increase repo rate from 6% to 6.50%, that means there will be less liquidity in the market. That means they have reverse relation and they have similar आपका parallel relation. Okay. So there will be less liquidity, so inflation will also come down. So this is something very basic logic, and I believe कि maximum people they generally know around all these particular concept. Okay, though we'll go through these particular one by one, right? So monetary policy, which help to manage money supply, which is liquidity, availability of money, and cost of money. So these are the areas which generally get regulated through the monetary policy. Its goal to ensure economic growth and stability. RBI announced monetary policy statement bi-monthly, but as per the Act MPC, so it is आपका the meeting should be held at least 4 times in a year, right? So you have to remember this one. Sometime it will be part of your statement as well. We can have expansionary monetary policy. The expansionary monetary policy is where RBI increasing the money supply in the economy, and contextual monetary policy when RBI decreasing the monetary policy. So for expansionary monetary policy, what RBI will do? RBI will do the rate cuts. They'll decrease the rate, CRR, SLR, repo rate, or any other rate. Okay? In case of contextual monetary policy, they'll increase the rate, like they'll increase repo rate, they'll increase bank rate, they'll increase CRR, SLR, and others, right? So the other side is fiscal policy. When it comes to fiscal policy, is managed by government through spending and taxation to influence macroeconomic factors like demand, inflation, and others. They are generally part of this particular one. Okay? So, like, see, fiscal policy is something which is usually get decided on annual basis, and when it comes to the monetary policy, it is bi-monthly. So it help to manage money supply in the short term if it about the monetary policy, and fiscal policy they generally decide things for the long term. And fiscal policy is always a growth oriented again, because it is generally designed by the government and they have to show some numbers, right? And then first fiscal policy will come, like your budget used to come on 1st February for the next financial year, right? So they'll come up with their announcements and all, they'll create the overall money supply. Then how to control that particular one, how to fix the patches and others, that is generally handled through the your RBI monetary policy. So now we have tools of monetary policy. Let's quickly go through all the tools. Okay? So first one is bank rate. When it comes to bank rate, so bank rate is rate at which RBI lend money to commercial bank for more than 90 days. Simply saying this is the one. It is also known as long term. So this is the tool. So as per section 49 of RBI Act 1934, is the standard rate at which RBI prepare to buy or rediscount bills of exchange or commercial paper from banks. It is essentially the rate of interest charged by RBI on long-term borrowings by the bank. For less than 90 days, we have a tool called repo rate. For more than that, we have your aapka bank rate, which is also known as discount rate, right? So it is also known as discount rate. It does not require pledging of securities. Now, one another difference which you have to remember, in case of repo rate, we have, like, while RBI give loan to commercial bank under repo transaction, they ask for the government securities. But in case of your bank rate, banks they do not require to provide the pledge or securities against that particular borrowings. Bank rate is aligned with the MSF, marginal standing facility, which is basically for the overnight things rate, and change automatically with the MSF and policy rate as well. Okay, so like these are the rates. This is, I generally converted the text from your book, so this is the old one, so you can ignore this particular data. Okay. A central bank use it as a tool to regulate the money supply in the economy. So differences with money MSF is, when it comes to MSF, marginal standing facility, it is the rate at which RBI lend money to commercial bank for overnight. Okay? So it is generally for overnight. Overnight is this kind of a emergency lending. So that happened in this particular one. Actually, there is the MSF is a notional transaction. When bank they miss their SLR target, so RBI or there is an agreement between bank and RBI. So it is assumed that RBI have given that shortfall amount as a loan to the bank itself, right? So bank rate and MSF different design and purpose. MSF is used for emergencies for overnight borrowing by commercial banks for commercial bank from RBI against securities. Usually it is to fill the gap of your SLR securities itself. Okay, so now when it comes to the differences between these two, so bank rate, the rate it is also known as discount rate at which RBI grant long-term loan to the commercial bank. It is commercial bank for आपका overnight borrowings, right? Duration, it means for long term. It is for overnight. Collateral stream, loan. The loan can be raised without pledge of the securities. Here it is as आपका through the SLR things. As I told you now, the loan is given against security within the limit of SLR and up to a certain percentage of NDTL. It is right now it is 2% of the NDTL of bank itself. To manage and control credit supply in the country, to provide fund to bank overnight when they face acute shortage of funds to manage their SLR itself, right? So this is something that generally comes under this particular one. Okay? Very simple one. Chalo, let's move forward. CRR, cash reserve ratio. We all know about this one. Okay? So these things you have discussed or you have learned around your banking exam preparation also, but I have kept everything so you can go through these particular content, and if you face any difficulty, so you can quickly revise your banking preparation things and all. Okay? So when it comes to CRR, it is a portion of NDTL that a bank need to maintain with आपका RBI in the form of cash, and RBI does not pay any interest on the CRR as well. It is part of our reserve system. Okay? So CRR is the percentage of bank NDTL that must be maintained as liquid cash with RBI. This ensures safety and liquidity of deposit in a fractional reserve banking system. Okay? This comes basically this concept arises from the Basel 1, Basel 1 committee's recommendations, and simultaneously we also adopt this particular one. Okay? So maintained on fortnight basis, CRR help regulate liquidity in the economy. 2006 amendment to RBI Act removed the earlier cap of 3 to 20% on CRR. Now it can be any, like it can be in range of anything. Giving the RBI full flexibility to set this particular one. Earlier there was a cap key, like it can be minimum 3%, maximum 20%. Any shortfall in maintaining CRR calculated against cash balances in this, and if bank are not maintaining that particular CRR levels properly, so they'll also face some sort of penalties from RBI also. Okay? So CRR, as simple as that, like a form of cash, like basically banks, commercial bank in India, they have to maintain a certain portion of their NDTL, the total borrowings from the market, with RBI in the form of cash. Okay? And RBI does not pay any interest on this one, and the impact on liquidity and inflation will remain same. If RBI will increase CRR, there will be less liquidity in the market, that will lead to the inflation control, and or that is part of the contextual monetary policy. If RBI decrease CRR, that is part of expansionary monetary policy, right? So SLR, the other tool which is part of the our reserve system, a portion of NDTL that bank need to maintain with themselves or itself in the form of cash, gold, and approved securities or government securities. When it comes to approved securities, they generally known as GSEC. GSEC means government security or gilt-edged securities, right? So a minimum percentage of bank NDTL that must be maintained in the form of cash, gold, and government securities. mandated under Section 42 of the RBI Act 1934, Section 24 of BR Act 1949. RBI can change the SLR percentage up to 40% via notification. Purpose is आपका control credit expansion by the regulating the level of the bank lending, ensure bank solvency by requiring a portion of deposit to be held as a liquid asset. So they can they can hold those particular assets and they can meet with any sort of liquidity requirements. Promotes investment in government securities. Promote government securities as a bank fulfill SLR through the investments also. So that is really part of this one. Okay, next one, MSS, the another scheme which is known as Market Stabilization Scheme 2004. This scheme get introduced. So basically, through this particular one, we are generally buying and selling government securities and we are managing the liquidity. MSS was introduced in 2004 to absorb excess liquidity caused by the foreign capital inflows. Okay? The area of working or the core area of this particular one is foreign capital inflows. Okay? MSS absorb liquidity through treasury bills. That means when RBI conduct the MSS operation, so RBI is selling liquidity, treasury bills in the market. Let's say if there is sudden excess flow from the foreign capitals. So what RBI will do to maintain that money supply, they'll come up with some treasury bills. They'll issue these particular treasury bills in the market, right? They'll issue these particular one in the market itself, and they'll observe that whatever the excess, let's say there is 1 lakh crore rupees excess in the market, so they'll come up with a treasury bill of 91 days or 182 days or 364 days, and they'll sell the government securities and they'll reduce the overall money supply in the economy. MSS is meant for long-term liquidity absorption. Repo rate affect borrowing cost for bank, influencing interest rate in the economy. And reverse repo rate is the rate at which bank deposit excess money with RBI. These are the simple other tools also. SDF, this is something new which get introduced by RBI in 2022. So this is a kind of a replacement, not exact replacement. It is kind of a type of reverse repo rate. So basically, in case of reverse repo rate, our bank, they generally deposit their surplus money with RBI. Similarly, in SDF also, a bank deposit their surplus money with RBI, but in case of reverse repo rate, RBI provide government securities or collaterals to those particular one. But in case of SDF, RBI does not provide any security to the governments, to the banks. But in case of SDF, they have higher rate of interest. The bank is achieving higher rate of interest. In case of reverse repo rate, they are getting less rate of interest, right? So SDF enable the RBI to absorb excess liquidity from the commercial bank without giving securities in return. So this is the only difference between these two and the rate of interest. Introduced under the amendment section 17 of RBI 2018 and become operational from 8th of April 2022. SDF allow RBI to absorb liquidity without collaterals, enhancing monetary policy tool and supporting financial stability. All LAF liquidity adjustment facility participants can overnight deposit with RBI under the SDF. RBI can also observe liquidity from a longer duration with appropriate pricing as well. SDF deposit are not counted toward the CRR. Please do remember this one. Are not counted towards CRR but are eligible for the SLR under section 24 of BR Act 1949. This statement is very, very important. So please do remember this one. Okay? So when it comes to SDF deposit not counted toward the CRR, that means while bank will manage their while bank will report their cash position with RBI, so this will not counted in this one. You have to maintain separately. But when it comes to the SLR, in that case, like you have to maintain, let's say, a certain portion of NDTL. That NDTL will also account the SDF deposit with itself or whatever the requirement it is, right? Next one, tri-party repo. So when it comes to the tri-party repo, So triparty repo is similar to repo agreements. Like in case of repo, RBI giving loan to commercial bank. Okay? So it is repo transaction for 90 days. Now in case of triparty repo, so what is the sequence आपका? ठीक है? So one party is giving loan to another party, and this arrangement is done by some third party. Okay? So basically this we are routing the fund with the help of this third party, and third party which is making some sort of commitments or giving the security to the lenders or arranging funds for the borrowers and all, right? So triparty repo agreement involving three parties: borrowers, lender, and the third party agent, which is mostly CCIL team, which manage collaterals, settlements, and custody. It replaced by a CBLO from November 2018, enhance liquidity in the corporate bonds market and others. That is the primary agenda of this particular one. Okay. Next one, just a minute. Huh? Okay. So there are three or four tools. Actually, I have one another session. So guys, next tool is your term repo. Okay. Term repo. So when it comes to term repo, so term repo is it get introduced in October 2013. So it is something like it is term repo is where it is generally used for the long term. Okay. So where we are when government RBI is doing some sort of auctions of the other things, bonds and others. So introduced in October 2013, term repo inject liquidity for a period longer than overnight, like these one, the one, helps set benchmark and improve the monetary policy transmission. Long term TLTRO, it is for 1 to 3 years. It get introduced during the COVID period. Okay? So it is a kind of कि bank will get loan at repo rate but for long term duration. So T means targeted. We were targeting during that period COVID-19 impact. Okay. So long term repo operation. So 1 to 3 years आपका, ठीक है. So if bank will get a loan for a longer duration at lower rate of interest, obviously their bank rate will come down. Their base rate will come down. So they'll give, or that is simply means their cost of funds will come down. So they'll give loan to customers at a lower rate of interest. So economy will have sufficient funds. Reverse repo, the rate, this we have discussed, at which commercial bank they generally deposit their money with RBI, and it is with collaterals. In that means RBI provide the suitable securities against these particular one. So reverse repo, this we have discussed here. Goal of monetary policy. So now we will be continuing our discussion from this particular one. So reverse repo rate, this we have discussed earlier also, right? So the rate at which banks they generally deposit their surplus money with RBI, and RBI do provide some sort of collaterals against these particular deposit. This is the only difference between SDF and the reverse repo rate. In case of SDF, the rate of interest which generally bank get, that is higher because there is no collateral provided by RBI. But in case of reverse repo rate, there is collaterals provided by the bank itself, and bank they can use those particular one for their SLR management and all, right? So reverse repo rate. So now goals of monetary policy. So monetary policy committee, which is generally which is a kind of a decision-making authority about these monetary things and all. Or they generally have meetings, and during these particular meetings, they generally assess the overall Indian economy, the growth aspect, or the inflation level, or the others, demand and consumptions in the economy. So basically, we are trying to meet these particular things. First, the primary objective of monetary policy to maintain price stability, or like as I told you in previous session also, fiscal policy which comes earlier, like let's say right now it is 2025-26, and the fiscal policy get announced on 1st of February 2025 itself. Okay? So for the next financial year, and basically whenever it comes to the fiscal policy, that is led by the government, and they always have an agenda around the growth things, right? So they generally always come up with the expansionary thoughts and all. So that means they are increasing the overall money supply in the economy. So obviously this will lead to the higher inflation. To control that particular one, or for the price stability, we have monetary policy, right? So the along with the growth. So May 2016, RBI Act 1934 was amended to provide statutory basis for the implementation of flexible inflation targeting frameworks, that is 4% plus 2 and minus 2. That means the range is 2 to 6%. The amendment RBI Act also provide the inflation target which is set by Government of India in consultation with RBI once in every 5 years. Okay, once in every 5 years. Accordingly, the central government notify the in the official gazette 4% consumer price index inflation as targeted for the period of August 2016 to March 2021. And even right now also we generally target that 4% plus 2 minus 2 is the range of, right? So under the tolerance limit of 6% and lower it is 2%, which is a 4% plus 2 minus 2. 31st March 2021, central government retained the inflation target and tolerance band 4 plus to this for the next 5 year period, which is like till year 2026 itself. So right now it is, we are having this. This is something which is very, very important one. So many times you'll see question around this particular one. Mostly these are the statement based question and all. Okay. Next one, we have fiscal policy. When it comes to fiscal policy, it is something about the taxation or the overall standings of the governments and all that generally comes under this. The fiscal policy referring changes in expenditure and taxes aimed at achieving the macroeconomics goals like growth, employment, investment, and price stability. It is based on two key instruments. One is taxation, the sources of income or through which government generally control the overall money supply, and the government is spending. So accordingly, they plan their spendings and all. Take, let's say if there is high inflation, so what government will usually do? They'll increase the taxes. Okay, when they'll increase the taxes, the prices will go up and the consumptions of the economy will come down. And another one is when it comes to the government spending, if government want to increase their expenditures, so what usually they'll do to increase the expenditures, they have to reduce the taxes. Okay, if they'll reduce the taxes, obviously it will, like, people will have more money in their hand, or that is also known as disposable income. So tax income after the taxes, so their disposable income will increase, so they'll increase, they'll do more demands. Like as in the union budget 25-26, government they come up with some sort of, they come up with the changes in the your taxation rate, right? So up to, if you are a salaried person, if you are earning till 12 lakh 70,000, so you do not have to pay any taxes, right? So that means people will save more. If they'll save more, they'll invest more or they'll consume more, right? That is the only thing. So impact of taxation and the government expenditure. When it comes to taxation, tax influence the disposable income. That means when there will be higher taxes, the disposable income will be at lower side. And if there will be, if government reduce the taxes, the disposable income will increase, right? Savings accordingly and investment, thereby affecting the economic output and per capita income. They also impact the prices of goods and services by altering production cost and influencing incentives and behaviors in the economy. Sometimes like schemes like PLIs and others, they generally promote the production of certain goods and services in the economy. So as a manufacturer, if you are getting some sort of relaxation from the government, obviously your profit margin will increase. You'll sell product at a same price or lower price, right? Impact of government expenditure include capital spendings on infrastructure, roads, highways, port and others, and current spending like salaries for public employees and all. Also include transfer payments. Basically, these are the kind of government schemes or grants to the vulnerable groups like poor or unemployed and others, right? So this is another one. So through fiscal policy, government is generally managing their income and expenditure and the overall money supply in the economy. So whenever it is required, they generally do the certain changes and all. So objectives of fiscal policy: primary objective, economic growth, then price stability. When it comes to monetary policy, we have a flip. Like the primary goal is price stability, then it is economic growth. Apart from this, mobilize resources, enhance allocative efficiency, so we can have or we can utilize our the resources in the economy, or we can have a fair distribution, reduce income and wealth inequalities, that is the outcome of this, and promote private sector investments and others. So they are with the help of public private partnership and all, that generally comes under this one, right? So very simple one. I hope this is clear. Now when you'll come to the budget also, because after that we have unit number 18, which is all about the union budget. So that's why they have kept very small portion of your like fiscal policy in this particular budget and fiscal policy, because budget is a kind of a current things through which we are managing, or we are which get directed through your fiscal policies and all, right? FRBM Act 2003. This is something which we come up with. So basically, we can reduce the, or we can kind of counter the overall fiscal deficit of the government. Like, let's say if we do not have any sort of control on our debt. So this is something to control the debt portion of the economy itself, or of the government itself. So FRBM Act, which was enacted in 2003, which become effective from 5th of July 2004. The act prohibit deficit financing through money creation by RBI. The original deadline for was 31st March 2008 to come down with that overall deficit and all. Finance Act 2012 introduced medium term expenditure framework also. NK Singh committee recommended a 60% debt to GDP ratio, which is 40% for center and 20% for a state. The government can divide from the fiscal targets due to national deviate from the fiscal targets due to national security concern, economic downturns, or economic reforms and others. Okay? So sometime what happened, like let's say if we have some fiscal deficit target, but there are some external factors, due to those particular one you have to deviate from this. External factors like your COVID-19 situation and all. So these kind of things which generally, which are the reason for deviating from those particular target. FRBM Act mandate quarterly fiscal performance review by the finance ministers in parliament also, right? So this was the act which was passed to control the overall spendings of the government, or to reduce the overall debt burden on the economy itself. So like if we have some sort of guidelines, proper guidelines and all, so we can have a proper like kind of cross checks whatever the government is doing, and we can have some sort of target. This is the target, beyond this we are not going to expend the overall debt and all, right? And what will be the consequences and all. So this is all about this. So let's sum up. So monetary policy is the process by which government, central bank, or monetary authority control the supply of money, availability of money, and cost of money, or the rate of interest, in order to attain set of objective oriented toward the growth and stability of the economy, price stability in the economy. Tools of monetary policy, we have bank rate, RBI to commercial bank for long-term period. So central bank charge on the loan and advances. It is also known as discount rate. CRR, the portion of NDTL that bank maintain with RBI in the form of cash, liquid cash. SLR, statutory liquidity ratio. Bank need to maintain a certain portion of their NDTL with them in the form of cash, gold, and approved securities. Repo rate, repurchase rate, at which RBI lend money to commercial bank for short term. Open market operation, it is a process of buying and selling government securities through RBI. And in economic, fiscal policy is use of government spending and revenue collection to influence the economy also. So as you can see in this summary one also, so they have like, there are 7 points, 6 points are around the monetary policy, and only 1 point around the your fiscal policy. Similarly, if you'll see the overall content also, as I said, downside 80% content belongs to your monetary policy, and the only around 20% on an average that belongs to fiscal policy, right? The computation, the utility, and the important variants of national product aggregates. So these are some generally part of this particular one, right? So when it comes to SNA, as I said, like 2000, like SNA, these are the uniform rules and regulations. Like these are similar to your IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards, in case of companies' final report, or even like let's say to report the final accounts of a company, we have Indian accounting standards or accounting standards. So these are the similar one. Like while economies, they are coming with their GDP numbers. So how they should compute that particular one? For that one, we have SNA system, right? So system of national accounts. SNA ensure global comparability. So like if we are comparing economy, one economy with another, so if all the economies are coming up with their data by using the same procedures, so we'll have some sort of uniformity, and it will help in the global comparability in macroeconomics data by providing standardized frameworks. The primary reason for revising the base year, like in case of India, the GDP base year is 2011-12, as which is aligned with the SNA 2008 itself. So there was some structural changes during that particular period. Earlier it was 2004-5. So we changed from 4-5 to 11-10, because during these 10 years or 20 years there was a drastic change in the world economy due to globalization, due to economic recession, and other also, right? The base year to reflect the structural changes in the economy. SNA 2008 was developed by the inter-secretariat working groups on national accounts, which include Eurostat, we have IMF, OECD, UN, World Banks. So these are the institutions and groups who generally participated in the recommendations of SNA 2008. UN member nations are advised to follow the SNA. That means these are not necessary. There is no legal or there is no mandate from the UN side ki you have to have adopt these particular one, but these are the advice line. If you'll do so it will help you to compare your economy with the rest of the world. India revised GDP base year from 2004-5 to 2011-12 in the alignment of the 2008 SNA standards, right? So system of national accounts, the primary goals or the primary objectives of SNAs are basically standardized framework. So the SNA provide a common language and set of rules for the measuring economic activities, though it is like whether you are using expenditure method or income method or the product method, again allowing comparison across the countries and over time. Macroeconomics accounts, it focus on overall performance of the economy, including production, income and consumption, investment and financial transactions. Consistent and integrated, the SNA ensure that different economic measures are consistent with each others and fit together in a coherent way. Policy and analysis tool, the SNA provide data that is crucial for the economic policy making, analysis and research itself, right? So the game is as simple as that. Let's say there are two economies, economy A and economy B. Earlier, economy A is using X method and economy B is using Y method while they are calculating their GDP or their national income, right? So now if I'll ask you a simple question, okay, which economy is doing well, so you can't make your decision because every economy they are using their own or they are using a different method. Now we come up with SNA things, so system of national accounts. Now economy A as well as economy B or the rest economies, they are using same method to account their national income. So now it become very easy in the comparability. So even SNA also, they time to time basis they generally release, like SNA means like sometimes IMF World Economic Outlook reports and others. So while they prepare those particular report, if your economies are following those particular standard, so based on that particular one, they come up with some sort of output or outcomes. Okay, what will be the economic scenarios in the recent years or in the coming years, and what prevent like what are the cautions which economies should adopt to deal with those particular crises, and also they're generally part of this particular. So basically SNA is something, it is a system which provide a uniformity to the economies while they account their national income, or while they account their income, expenditure, or their overall output as well, right? So this is all about your SNA things. Now, while we calculate the GDP, I hope you heard about this particular national income basically. Okay. So first we have to calculate the GDP. Okay, GDP, gross domestic product. Here, when it comes to GDP, it is the output of the final goods and services produced within the geographical boundary of an economy during a financial year. Okay? So when it comes to GDP, so let's say the final goods and services produced within the geographical boundary of an economy, the total or the money value of that particular one is called GDP. Okay? So GDP is the total money value of all final goods and services produced within the geographical boundary of that particular economy, whether it is produced by the nationals or the foreigners. Okay? Let's say in case of India, it is produced by Indian companies or outsiders. That will be part of your economic output, GDP, first, while you calculate the national income. Okay? If you minus directly, if you minus GDP minus depreciation, so it is generally known as, it is called your NDP, net domestic product. Again, production methods. So net domestic product. Okay. Or else if you manage we have GNP, gross national product. So while you calculate this particular one, it is GDP minus or GDP plus, sorry, again, it is if you are using income method, so net income from abroad, or if you are using expenditure method, it is your net export. Okay? So net export means आपका X minus M, export minus import. Okay? So this is your GNP, gross national product. Okay? When you come to the NNP, आपका net national product, NNP is equal to GNP minus depreciation. So these are some calculations while we use the while we do the calculation of national income, we do follow these particular one. Okay? So the base is, first we have to calculate GDP in all the cases. So GDP, we start calculation with the GDP, and to calculate GDP you have three different method. One is expenditure method, which is about the consumption done by the government or the private entities. Okay? So consumption, investments, government, and net export minus import. This is your expenditure method. When it comes to income method, to calculate GDP, so income method, we generally account the sources of income. When it comes to sources of income, primarily we have four sources economy wise: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Land, they generally get rent, labor, wages, and salaries. Entrepreneurs, they get profit, and investment, they get return. So they generally part of this particular one: wages, rental, capital, and profits and all. The third method is to account the GDP is production method. It is, as I told you, the total money value of all final goods and services produced within that geographical boundary, that is called your production method. Okay? So this is something your aapka GDP calculation. How actually we do the calculations for the GDP itself. Okay? Gross domestic product. So this is generally part of this one. Okay? Now after calculating GDP, we generally calculate the different areas, like we use different methods like GNP, NNP, or NDP and others. So for this one, I got a chart. So like let's say in case of income method, you factor income base, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. So GDP calculation plus net income from overseas. Okay? Net income from overseas. So that means there are so many Indians, those who are living outside India. So the income generated by those Indians, and they send that income to India. And there are lots of foreigners or foreign companies who working in India, and they send some money to their home countries. So that is after that adjustment is your net income from overseas or abroad. Okay? So this is, after this it will reach to your GNP, gross national income, minus depreciation. If you minus depreciation, it will come to the net national income. Please go through this particular one very carefully. If you understood this chart now, The remaining 3 to 4 charts you'll easily get, right? So income method, factor income, land, labor, capital in entrepreneurship, their outcome, plus net factor income from abroad, or it is also known as net income from abroad or overseas, okay? Which is basically आपका the income generated by Indians from outside India, or minus the income generated by foreigners from India, right? And they have sent it to their own countries. So you will reach to the GNI, that is gross national income. If you minus depreciation, you will reach to the net national income, ठीक है, NNI. The output method आपका, ठीक है, output method means product method, production method, ठीक है. So it is gross domestic product, the total output within that geographical boundaries of the economy, ठीक है, plus net overseas income. Thus we have studies in this particular one also, ठीक है, income by Indians from outside India minus income by foreigners, those who send to other countries, ठीक है, is equal to gross national product minus depreciation. It will reach to your net national product, ठीक है. So your NNI is equal to NNP or equal to net national expenditure. The third method is expenditure method. So gross national gross domestic expenditures done by government or आपका private, ठीक है. So plus net income from overseas and export minus import, x minus m, import export minus import, ठीक है, will reach to gross national expenditure plus subsidies, ठीक है, subsidies provided by the government minus taxes, ठीक है. So we reach to gross national expenditure, gross national expenditure minus depreciation, so that is called net national expenditure. So please take a screenshot of this particular one. This will help you to revise the things also, right? Though in your curriculum they did not have included any case studies around this particular one, but still, like, this is something which you should remember because it will help you to account things and all. Now all these three methods which are given in our book itself, okay, in detail. So first one is expenditure method. When it comes to expenditure method, national income is equal to private consumption plus private investment, government consumption plus change in stocks plus net export from net exports of goods and services. Net export means export minus import, right? So net export of, it is mentioned here also, again, export minus this. So this is the formula which we generally use to calculate GDP by expenditure method, right? So GDP is equal to C plus, C means आपका consumption, I plus investment, G plus आपका governments, plus X minus M, which is export minus import. So consumptions means what? This include personal expenditure pertaining to food, household, medical expenses and all, ठीक है. Government investments आपका capital expenditures and others, ठीक है. So investment as capital, which include construction of new mine, purchase of machinery, construction of buildings, highways, dam, or purchase of software, expenditure on new houses, buying goods and services. But investment on financial product is not included in this particular one, okay? So it is not for the investment purpose, though it is for the consumption purpose. That is generally part of this one, okay? Government spendings, when it comes to government spendings, okay? So it is the sum of government expenditures like services provided by the governments, okay? It includes salaries of public servants, okay? Day-to-day expenditure on day-to-day functioning of government departments, okay? So purchase of weapons for military, investment expenditure by our governments or the others one, okay? Then we have exports, export done by the from the country, and the import. So this is the formula, and this is the overall things which are generally part of your expenditure method. Very important one. So please do take care around these particular lines and all. So many times you'll see questions around this particular one and they get asked in the examination also. So you have to be very careful. Second method is we have income method. So income method, when GDP from the income method is the sum of आपका sources of income. When it comes to sources of income, these are land, labor, capital and entrepreneurs. Land, from land we get rent, labor they get salary, wages, then capital get interest, and entrepreneurs, they get the profit. So the total of all these particular four sources plus your net factor income, right? So consumption of employees, compensation of employees, property income or production taxes and depreciation on capital. Compensation of employees, wage, salary and other supplements. Then we have property incomes. It constitute corporate profits, proprietors income, interest and rent. So that those four sources are further categorized between these two. Okay, so how you calculate this? GDP at market price measure the value of output at the market prices, like market prices. Like we have two prices. One is factor cost. Factor cost is cost of production. So the cost of production of this market is 100, and as a user or as a consumer, I purchase this particular one at 120. So 120 is market price and the cost of production or the factor cost is 100 rupees, right? So GDP at market price measure the value of output at your market price. That means when you calculate GDP at market price, it will be higher than the GDP at factor cost. So simple, right? So after adjusting the effect of indirect taxes and subsidies on the prices, market prices is the economic prices for which a goods or services is offered in the marketplace. GDP at factor cost is measure value of output in term of prices of factors used in production. Factor of production are land, labor, capital and entrepreneurs. They get remuneration in the form of rent, wages, salaries, interest and profit respectively. Understood? So GDP at factor cost, GDP at factor cost is equal to GDP at market price minus indirect taxes minus subsidies. When you will calculate this one, so national income is equal to आपका wages, rent, interest, dividend, then undistributed profit. So these are the elements plus opening stock of the public enterprise plus mixed income from the self-employed. Let's say there is a person who is working as a salaried person as well as he is providing some sort of coaching. So that is the one thing. Direct taxes collected by the governments plus net factor income from abroad. That is NIA, net income from abroad. The income which is generated by Indians from outside India or the income which is generated by foreigners from India itself, right? Plus value of production for self-consumption also. Okay? That is your income method. Okay? Now the next one is expenditure, product approach or production method. In India, for all these years, we have been getting GDP product wise. We calculate how much have been produced, means the final money value of a product in each sectors and aggregate it in order to get the GDP factors. So basically, while we do the calculations of GDP, we apply the production methods. Okay? So the output methods, which is also known as, we also get GDP based on the stated levels. So state levels, state GDPs and all. So product output or value added method. So this is product method. It is also known as output method, production method, value added method. National income is equal to GDP at market price minus depreciation. GDP at market price minus depreciation plus net factor income from abroad minus indirect taxes plus government subsidies. This is the formula which we use to calculate the आपका GDP. Now we have two type of GDP. One is real, another one is nominal. So real GDP we generally calculate at market prices. Nominal GDP we generally calculate at market prices. Real GDP get calculated after the adjustment of inflation. That means we generally compare it with the base years. Base year is 2011-12 as of now. Now how you will calculate? Let's say this market, we produce 10 lakh market during 24-25. Okay. If you are calculating price of the market price at market price, that is, let's say we are selling one market to the customer at 150 rupees. So that is the calculation at your nominal GDP. If you are adjusting with inflation, let's say if you are comparing the prices from the base year which is 11-12, where the prices was 130 rupees. So if you are doing calculation as per 130, that is your real GDP, right? So real GDP is basically your inflation adjusted GDP, right? And the same thing you have to remember. So your nominal GDP will be higher than your real GDP. So many times you'll see this particular statement in your examination. So real GDP or GDP at constant price of your base year 2011-12. Okay. It's simply the value of today's output at yesterday's price, meaning yesterday means आपका base year means 11-12. Real GDP is calculated by tracking volume or quantity of production after removing influence of changing prices, which is called inflation. It reflects the real growth of the economy. Nominal is current prices, represent the total money value of final goods and services produced in a given year, where the value are expressed in term of market price of each years. So this is आपका today's value at today's price. So today's value at आपका today's price itself. So these are the three methods: income method, expenditure method, and product method or आपका output method. I hope this is clear to everyone. Now there is a concept called GDP, which is like very old. Now we have a new concept which is called GVA, gross value added method, right? So comparing the GVA with आपका GDP. ठीक है? So when it comes to GVA, it is at the supply side and GDP is at demand side. ठीक है? So economic growth can be estimated by supply side. ठीक है? Supply side आपका where we use GVA and demand side where we use GDP. So GVA, gross value added methods, calculate by summing the value added by sectors, which is agriculture, industry, service, primary, secondary, and tertiary. It reflects the income generated by all the economic sectors. Okay. When it comes to GDP, it derived by the summing of all expenditure, private consumption, government, business investment, and net exports. It includes taxes received and subsidies given during that particular period. So that GDP is equal to GVA, gross value added, plus net taxes, which is taxes minus subsidies. Okay? So useful, like GDP is better for comparing economic growth. When it comes to GVA, it is comparing for sector-wise analysis of these different sectors and their contribution in the overall GDP outputs. So this is the one, right? So we can have GVA at basic price. So how we calculate this one? So GVA is a measure of the value of goods and services produced in an area or geographical area, industry or a sector, primary, secondary or tertiary, or banking, automobiles and others. If an economy less intermediate consumptions over a specified period of time. GVA at basic price is a new measure of economic activities simplified in 2011 by National Statistic Office NSO, replacing the practice of measuring it by GDP at factor cost. So earlier we used to have GDP at factor cost and now we have GDP at basic prices. So how we calculate this one? GVA at basic prices is equal to GDP at factor cost plus production taxes less production taxes minus subsidies by the government. So GVA at basic price is equal to GVA at factor cost, cost of production plus taxes minus production subsidies. GDP at market price is equal to GVA at basic price plus production minus production subsidies. So basic price is equal to factor cost plus production taxes minus subsidy. Market price is आपका basic price plus production taxes minus subsidy. So this is something which is all about your SNA and the basic areas around the national income. So let's summarize with the help of book itself. So GDP is the total money value of all final goods and services produced within the geographical boundary of economy. Simple. GDP at market price measure the value of output at market prices. Today's consumption, today's valuations, or today's output, today's value. After adjusting the effect of indirect taxes and subsidies, so you have to add the indirect taxes and you have to minus the subsidies, government subsidies. GDP at factor cost measure the value of output in term of price of factors used in production, like labor, land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurs. GDP at aggregate measure, it does not speak anything about the GDP is distributed among the population of the country. For that one, we have your growth. Okay? GDP is a growth measure, simply saying. Okay? And there is a difference between growth and developments. For like for the income distribution level of the economy, for the equality levels in the economy, we generally judge performance of economy based on the development measures like human development index and others. But when it comes to GDP, it is quantitative in nature. They generally account economies, economy, or they generally rank economies based on their outputs and all, right? Higher GDP does not necessarily imply higher welfares, right? So like India is world fifth largest or fourth largest economy, right? But when it comes to the development, like which include health, education, medical services, or the infrastructure and others, so as per SDI, we come around 129 or 130th position. So this is the difference between these two parameters. It generally account things based on the your how that economy is giving the output during that particular specified period and all, right? So this is it. Bye bye. Take care all. Have a nice day. Thank you. All the very best for your preparation, guys.